Good to have you along on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. I'm Jerry Usher, along with Debbie Georgiani and you. And as we always say, you are the key element to the program. Your takes drive the show. So I'll give you the phone number right away. I think we'll have a lot of participation today. 1-800-585-9396. 800-585-9396. Other ways you can get a hold of us, send a note through our YouTube channel at EWTN. Email take2, the number 2, at EWTN.com. And you can send a text the letters EWTN to 55000, and we'll do our best to work you into the program. Debbie, today, an important topic, I think, because in our culture, we're going to be talking about persons with disabilities. And I think a lot of wonderful efforts have been made to accommodate and to assist people with disabilities. But then again, there's the big picture, and we want to talk about, is the big 38,000-foot view of this, where in the smoke-filled rooms they talk about physician-assisted suicide and these sort of the creeping culture of death that is sort of nibbling at the edges, especially of persons with disabilities.
So that's what we're talking about today on Take Two. If you have a disability and you feel that society has kind of pushed you aside, maybe, like Jerry said, there are those accommodations like parking spaces and ramps where needed, and different accommodations in hotels and different restaurants and stuff like that. You feel assisted that way. But what about by society? Do you feel pushed away? Do you feel shunned? And maybe disrespected? We want to hear from you, because we have to, they say all the time that you have to really, to know another person and what they're going through, you have to walk a mile in their shoes. And so we need you to participate. We need you to call in and share your experience of living in this world with a disability. Are you treated as a son or daughter of God? Are you respected? Do you feel as though you're maybe overly, there's maybe an abundance of attention given to you because of the disability? Maybe that's it. Maybe so many people don't know what to do, so they cater to you to the point where you're like, wait a minute, I can do it myself. Something of that nature. We want to hear from you. So here's the number, 1-800-585-9396. That's the number to get on the show. You're going to talk to Matt Gabinski. He's going to put you on hold, and you get to listen live. Then you get to jump right into the show. So you're not going to miss anything. So please don't hesitate. If you have something to say it now. 1-800-585-9396.
Yeah, I think a real test of where we are, certainly as Christians, as brothers and sisters in Christ, is if you're a person with a disability, what has been your experience in our churches? Do you feel, do people kind of just maybe ignore you because they don't, again, maybe it's not because they don't want to recognize your situation, but maybe it's, I sometimes get these thoughts going through my head, like I don't want to smother this person because they want to be able to do things themselves. And that's another point that I had made getting ready for the show, Debbie, is how do we ensure that we allow a person with a disability to utilize those abilities they've retained to make their own contributions to family and society at large. So, and also if you care for or just simply know someone with a disability and you want to share what your experience has been in assisting them and again helping to raise up their level of dignity and worth while at the same time providing for whatever they might need, feel free to give us a call.
Yeah, if you have a loved one that has a disability, what is your observation of how society deals with that? I think you bring a very good perspective on, so that we can get a better understanding. I've shared this before, Jerry, on the show, I believe, about we've been doing this wonderful show for almost 2 years. June 15th is our 2-year anniversary. And at the beginning, when we first started broadcasting the show, I shared the story one time of when I was a manager in the hotel business, and this gentleman used to come in on a regular basis who apparently was burned over 70% of his body, his whole entire face, all the way down, his scalp, everything. And he used to come in, sit in the same spot in the dining room of the hotel, and all the wait staff used to say, I wonder what happened to him. They would constantly be talking in the side station about this guy. And I said, you know what? Let's go find out. And I walked up to the table and I said hi to him like I always did, because I was the manager, used to kind of walk the floor. And I sat down and I said, "May I join you for a moment?" He said, "Sure." And I said, "Can I ask you what happened?" And about 45 minutes later, I heard the whole entire story of the accident that happened that caused him to be burned over 70% of his body. And at the end, when I shook his hand goodbye and I left, he said, "Thank you for asking me." And the only reason I did was because I was so tired of the wait staff talking about it in the side station. But I wonder, if you have a disability, would you rather have somebody come up to you and say, "Can I ask you, what has happened, or what can I do to assist," or whatever? Or would you rather just have people speculate and talk about what they think, possibly could have happened if you don't have you have a missing limb or something like that, of that nature? So I just share that because I'm a curious nature, Jerry. You know me. I'm always asking questions. But I found that it was so beautiful to talk with this gentleman when he could just feel free to share his story. And I think and that validated, I think it made him feel like, wow, I'm worthy of the discussion that needs to happen. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but I remember it. I remember it vividly, actually. And so that's why I bring it up on this particular subject.
All right, number again is 1-800-585-9396. 1-800-585-9396, or text the letters EWTN to 55000. We know the love, the compassion that Jesus had all through the Bible, all through the New Testament. I'm thinking especially, Debbie, of Matthew chapter 11, when they asked John, they said, "Are you he who is to come, or do we look for another?" And Jesus responded with words recalling the prophecies of Isaiah. He says, "Go back and report to John what you hear and see." They asked Jesus this question. He goes, "Go back and report to John what you hear and see. The blind recover their sight, cripples walk, lepers are cured, the deaf hear, dead men are raised to life, and the poor have the good news preached to them." This is in the church's DNA. So we must be compassionate, but also, again, I think allowing persons with disabilities to make their own way as far as they possibly can. And I just wanted to share. You shared that story about the man in the restaurant. I was out just the other night at I'm gonna give away my favorite food. I was at a Chinese buffet near where I live, and it was Mother's Day, and there was a elderly couple. They had to be well into their 80s. And the wife was in a wheelchair, and the husband just so beautiful. It was beautiful, just absolutely beautiful, just lovingly pushing her along the buffet line, and she could barely hold her plate. And he'd put 2 little bites of this on there and 2 little bites of that on there. And at one point, they were in front of a dish that I was going to help myself to. So I took several steps back, and I was just waiting. And Debbie, and this is not self-righteous, it's just to say that we have a bit of a problem in society, because people came, they were reaching across them. They were making contact with them, like almost bumping them out of the way, like move.
Like, get out of the way.
I want some of that. And I was stunned. I was just going to myself, are you kidding me? Right. So I'd love to hear from somebody. Are we that coarsened? Especially, I hate to say this, but are young people being taught the right way to respect persons with disabilities? So that story it just jolted me, really.
Yeah, I get a visual image when you were saying that, and that would really disturb me. Did you want to kind of elbow those people and just say, "Hey, have some respect"? I mean, I think that's the real issue, is the lack of respect we have in general for each other. And so this is going to be a very, very, I think, interesting educational discussion. Stay with us. I can't even talk today because I'm getting emotional, Jerry. Stay with us the entire hour. This is your show, Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We'll be right back.
Christ is the Answer with Father John Riccardo. John chapter 11, verses 21 to 26. This is the story of Lazarus. Lazarus has died. Lazarus is one of his best friends. Just before this passage, we hear the news that Martha and Mary send word to Jesus that the one you love is sick. And the next line in the scripture is, now because Jesus loved Martha and Mary and Lazarus, he stayed where he was. His friend's in need, he can heal, they've seen him heal before, and yet somehow because he loves him, he stays, and Lazarus dies. And then Jesus shows up 3 days later and is greeted by Martha and Mary, who confront him with the words, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would never have died. Rather applicable for many of us in our lives. We ask the Lord to do one thing because we're certain it is what we think is best, when in fact he has something which far surpasses what we ask for. The challenge is, in waiting for that to happen, we go through very trying times, which oftentimes makes us wonder, does he really care?
The Holy Father's prayer intention for the month of May is that Christians in Africa, in imitation of the merciful Jesus, may give prophetic witness to reconciliation, justice, and peace.
All people are called to communion with Christ in the church that he founded.
People really gravitate to David Anders and his concern for the callers. That's not just talk. He really means it.
Tom and I are both converts. We've walked that path, and we try to walk it with the listeners at whatever stage of the journey they're on.
It's EWTN's first weekly radio to TV talk show. Call to Communion with Dr. David Anders, tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern on EWTN television.
This is Father Joseph Mary.
This is Dr. Ray Guarendi, host of The Doctor Is In.
Hello, this is Bishop Mike Siss from the Diocese of San Angelo, Texas. Thank you for listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
We know you've got a lot you could be doing right now, and hopefully you are. Maybe doing something else while you listen to the program, maybe a little multitasking. Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. We are talking about persons with disabilities and how we view them, how we treat them, how society at large looks at them. So many times we read and hear, well, if a person is not quote unquote useful, then they can be shoved to the margins or even done away with. That's called a utilitarian mindset. So we're having this important conversation. We're going to bring you into it because you're the ones who really will teach us all what you have to share on your heart. So Claudia in Sioux City, Iowa, listening to EWTN Radio there. You get to go first. Hi, Claudia. Welcome aboard to Take Two.
Hi, Jerry and Debbie. How are you two today?
Doing well, Claudia. How are you?
Good. Hey, I just wanted to share a little different perspective from what you're talking about. I have a sister that is, we call her physically challenged, and she'd be the first person to say that rather than physically disabled. She got polio when she was 2 years old, woke up from a nap and couldn't walk. Mm-hmm. And so she was on crutches and braces for many, many years, and eventually is in a wheelchair, became a lawyer, one of 8 kids, and always was involved. My folks, we never treated her any differently than any of the other family members. And Marcia has been a wonderful example to all of our nieces and nephews. As you can imagine, there's a lot of them.
Right.
And
right.
I wanted just to share one thing that she has told us that she finds to be really important with her disability. She said it's important, especially now being in an electric wheelchair, she said it's really helpful if people will sit down at her level and talk with her, then she can see them rather than them looking down on her. And even as family members, none of us really thought about that. And she just really mentioned that within the last year. So I just wanted to give that to your listeners to think about when they meet somebody in a wheelchair.
Well, it's interesting that you're saying that, Claudia. First of all, would you tell your sister how much we admire her? I mean, to go through all she's gone through with the challenges and then to become a lawyer, I'm sure that's something she wanted to do and she achieved it. I mean, that's a great, she's a hero. That's awesome. Yeah.
She is. She's a hero to all of us. She truly is. She's a wonderful example of what it is to be a wonderful Catholic Christian. She's very involved in the church, and they have helped with accommodations. She's actually helped with the church as far as making accommodations to the church so they can get people, especially those that are physically challenged, up on the altar. Yeah. And that's been very important to her. She's very involved in the catechesis for young people, which she has really enjoyed. But she's been, again, we don't look at her, and my folks never raised us to look at her as being any different than the rest of us. And it's what a wonderful example of my folks to pass on to us, to pass on to our children and to others, that you have to look beyond maybe a physical or mental issue to be able to see the real person, to see their heart.
Well, absolutely, and that's where I was going with, and I'm glad you shared it. Your folks taught the whole entire family to treat your sister and look at your sister as the same as the rest, the whole group. Okay, so that's how we should view persons with disabilities in the general society. The problem is the world has told us, when you see somebody in a wheelchair, or you see somebody on crutches, or you see somebody that looks like there's something, maybe they have some mental challenges or emotional challenges, then there's something that automatically the world has told us something's wrong.
Right.
And that is the saddest thing in the world, because here's what's interesting about your sister. If you put your sister, okay, she's in a wheelchair. If you put your sister in the middle of a street in mainstream America, you may get those people that feel that way. Never do they go up and ask her. I mean, she's an accomplished lawyer. She's achieved so much in her life. And yet society, because of the visual image, has told us that we're supposed to treat them differently. I think see, what you're saying is key to this whole entire, we need to shift the mindset in this world on how we look upon each other in general. In general, with disabilities or without, just in general. So you really hit a home run with me, Claudia, because I'll tell you, this has always bothered me, especially working in the service industry. I see it a lot, and I see how people judge one another just by the first encounter, the visual encounter they have with the person, and I think that is just a sin. I really do. Jerry?
No, I think that was beautiful, and I just was going to say the same thing. The fact that you had the home environment there, where it was just everything was kind of matter of fact, and we're all created equal, but we're all created a little bit different anyway in the first place. So Claudia, I think what you shared was absolutely beautiful, and as Debbie said, please give your sister our love and respect, and ask her, and we ask you as well, if you all would pray for us. We'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
Thanks.
1-800-585-9396. Great opening take on this issue of persons with disabilities. We're going to go to Melissa next. She has us on the station, St. Bernadette Radio in Peoria, Illinois. Hi, Melissa. It's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. You're on the air. How are you?
Well, hi, Jerry and Debbie. It's really a pleasure to speak with you.
Likewise.
I'm calling about something a little bit different. When I was listening to your show, I thought this is something that wasn't mentioned. What do you do with someone that has a disability that's able to do a lot more for themselves, but they love the attention, they love to be, I hate to say, babied and coddled, and not do more for themselves when they can? I have a mother who's 89 years old. She's in an assisted living facility, and she's very able to do all kinds of things. But she's being really well taken care of there, and she likes to be treated like a queen. And she's losing her facility. She's not able to move her arms and her legs like she used to. She's not getting the exercise that she should to keep her healthy. And it seems like I'm the only one that's pushing her and trying to get her to do more so she can live longer. And she is really enjoying being taken care of and not doing more, and then also acting like she can't do as much as she can do so that people will do it for her. Therefore, she's not as healthy as she should be.
Well, Melissa, a couple thoughts that come to my mind, and then Debbie may have some, but really two key things that I'm hearing you say. One is that you mentioned the what's going to happen is she's going to fail more quickly physically. I mean, if she is required, maybe through tough love or whatever. We hear that said sometimes, but we have to administer that. I mean, sometimes it just has to be, Mom, you've done this. We've seen you do this. And I'm gonna, well, at least when I'm around, I'm gonna ask you to do for yourself whatever you can do for yourself. And then what she does or does not do, you kind of got to take it from there. But the other thing is too, and I wonder, and I'm not saying this about anybody else who's spending time with her, providing care with her, but in certain situations, again, maybe not yours, Melissa, but generally speaking, I think for those of us who might be in a position of caring for someone like your mom, it might be easier for us just to not have to put forth the effort to get her to do things for herself and so forth. There might be maybe a little complacency or a little laziness. I don't know. And again, I'm not accusing anybody in your situation of that, but I'm putting myself in that situation. I'm going, a lot of times it might just be easier to say, hey, here, get in the chair. I'm going to push you where you need to go, and let's get there and let's get on with this, that kind of thing. And that's an unfortunate attitude as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Melissa, I can relate very personally to this situation. Your mom and my mom should share a room together. They would be great together. When you were describing your mother, it's exactly my mother. And I will share with you what I said to my mom recently. And if she's listening right now, Connie, you will know that I said this to you every single day. And I know this is maybe not the right thing. If any priests want to call in and tell me I did the wrong thing, tell me. I just said, Mom, if you love me, you will walk every day. You will read every day. You'll drink a ton of water every day. You will do the things that you normally used to do in some, even if it's in a limited capacity, you'll do it if you love me. And I have done that to her, and that's the only thing that for some reason motivates her, because she'll go, I love you. Okay, I'll do it. And
I never thought of that.
I know, and I know that might be putting guilt on her, and I know that, but I got to tell you this, my mother is really doing well physically, and she's walking. In fact, she's even told the caregivers, my daughter says I've got to walk, all day long, so I'm walking, and so I don't know if that could help. I mean, maybe that's not the best approach, but I could feel your pain, Melissa, because I tried everything with my mother to get her to do the things. And she was doing the same thing. She would pick up a TV clicker and she'd ask the caregivers to turn it on for her. And I'm like, Mom, really? You can't turn on a TV clicker? You can't. So I can relate. I don't know if that could help, but I think the best thing is just to, a little healthy, little guilt doesn't hurt every once in a while, just to say, Mom, if you really love me, you'll do this for me. And my mom has been doing it now. And so it's really been a blessing in our life. But I agree with Jerry. Sometimes they get to that age where she loves the attention. My mother loves having that attention. Yeah. And yeah. So I feel for you. If you ever want to email me, we could swap stories together. The email is take2, the number 2 at EWTN.com. But
Debbie, I would, but we're computer free, so we made the choice to have
lucky you.
Right, and we have the only technology we have are flip phones. So that's what I'm talking to you on right now. But can I say, both of you gave me some really good advice. Jerry, you backed me up with the tough love. Sometimes I'm too tough, but I have to try not to be so tough, but stick with that. And Debbie, my mother tells me all the time that she loves me. And if I never thought of saying, Mom, if you really love me, you'll stop this wanting everybody to take care of you to an extreme and start taking better care of yourself. That is really helpful.
Well, I pray it is.
Awesome.
Yeah, you'll have to call us back and let us know if it worked.
I will sometime. I listen to you every time I'm in the car.
Oh, bless your heart.
And that's where I'm pulled over to talk with you, and I really appreciate this.
Absolutely, Melissa.
Well, glad that we had a topic on it that was relevant to your situation. Go ahead, Melissa.
Yes, and I am too, because a lot of it goes the other way. The questions and the comments go a different way, and not this way, where someone with a disability, likes the attention and wants everybody to cuddle them and baby them. And what do you do with somebody like that that's going to lose their facilities if they don't use them more, if they're able to?
Yeah.
True.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Melissa. Have a blessed day, and give your mom a big squeeze and a kiss from Jerry and Debbie.
Yes, and you're a great daughter, Melissa.
That's right. Thanks for the call, Melissa. Boy, I'm so the opposite. I can't stand asking for help. And there have been times, Debbie, I've been on crutches, I've been in wheelchairs just because of my knee and feet issues, and I so grudgingly ask for help. But maybe that's just because I'm stubborn and just want to feel like I can do everything for myself. Yeah, but tell you, it's a blessing to have people around. It's a true blessing to have people. And I have found, I will say this, by the way, we're going to get to more calls right after a quick break, but I will say this, those times, Debbie, when I am kind of hobbling through airports or whatever, got a knee flaring up and I'm on crutches, people are very, very kind. I've been very, very blessed and inspired. They will hustle up in front of you to get the door for you, or hey, can I help you with your bag or something like this. So I really still have a great deal of confidence in humanity because I've experienced it.
Well, maybe people are nice to you though, Jerry, because they can see that you have a disposition of trying to do things on your own and trying to be productive in the sense that you're going to make it through the airport on your crutches. So maybe people are responding to that. You never know. They could be responding to your strong will.
Or maybe they're just thinking, what is that guy doing?
We'll be right back.
Stay with us for more.
What is the evidence for the existence of God? How can faith and science coexist? How can something come from nothing? Cosmic questions that still elude the mind of man. Philosopher and theologian Father Robert Spitzer ignites an infinite discourse. At the intersection of faith and reason, we invite you to explore Father Spitzer's universe.
Friday, 8 p.m. and Sunday, noon Eastern on EWTN Radio.
This is Life Issues with Brad Mattis, president of Life Issues Institute.
Pro-abortion activists will try anything to silence a pro-life viewpoint. David Sanders, an associate professor of biology of all things at Purdue University, made a ridiculous statement during a campus debate. He declared pro-lifers who show pictures of unborn babies are promoting child pornography since they aren't wearing clothes. I wonder if he's advocating modest attire before every ultrasound. When someone pointed out Sanders was admitting it was a baby, he denied the claim. Further, Sanders stated the Bible doesn't condemn abortion and science doesn't back up the pro-life position. If I were the parent of a Purdue student, I'd have serious misgivings about the quality of their professors. Science has been clear for many decades that life begins at fertilization, naked or not.
Follow us on Twitter at Life Issues USA and stay informed, more informed than you've ever been.
You know what Catholic radio is? It's training for the troops. It's a inter-aural of the ear boot camp. The folks who listen, who grow in their faith, grow in charity, grow in all the virtues, they then go out and exert an influence far beyond just themselves. Catholic radio has an exponential effect for bringing people deeper into the faith.
Dr. Ray Guarendi thinks Catholic radio is important. So should you.
We're going to go back to your phone calls here. 1-800-585-9396. What is your perspective on persons with disabilities? If you are one, if you care for one, how does our culture, society, how does the church view and treat them? We know what Jesus thought of persons who were physically challenged, as one of our other callers mentioned. Could be a mental challenge of some kind as well. What do we do to help them and at the same time allow them to still do for themselves what they can? We're going to hear from Patricia next in Tiffin, Ohio, listening on St. John Paul the Great Radio. Hi, Patricia. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. How are you?
Hi, Jerry and Debbie. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I just wanted to raise a little bit of an awareness. I have a daughter who is adopted, who is on the fetal alcohol spectrum. And her birth mother was an alcoholic, and also there was a lot of exposure to drugs. And so she has, it's called static encephalopathy, which is a permanent brain damage, but it falls on the fetal alcohol spectrum. And I want to raise an awareness because autism gets a lot of attention, and understandably so, but children on the fetal alcohol spectrum are more prevalent than those with autism, and it doesn't get quite as much attention. And it's the leading cause of developmental delays and brain damage, and it's totally preventable. There's no amount of alcohol during pregnancy is safe for children. My daughter looks perfectly normal. She doesn't have the fetal alcohol physical characteristics. That's why she's on the spectrum. But she has lack of impulse control and constant movement and difficulty in processing and things like that. You mentioned about in church, and this is something else. You know, we go to daily mass, and, you know, you would hope that church would be the place that you felt most supported and most cared for. And unfortunately, it's been in church that we've probably been least supported in many ways. Anything from getting an anonymous note telling me that my daughter's a brat and to keep her at home, to being told that I was a terrible mother because she didn't behave when that particular time she wasn't really even doing anything wrong, just going over to a lady to say hello to her, to saying that because I homeschool her, I'm holding her back, that she should be in the school system where they can deal with her disability. You know, and I'm not trying to say things bad about people, but it's ignorance. It's ignorance. They don't understand. And I'm trying to educate. You know, a lot of them I've given. Some women I've given articles on fetal alcohol spectrum so maybe they could understand a little bit better. But I just kind of want to raise an awareness so that, you know, when you see somebody, especially in church or anywhere, that's having difficulty with your child, you don't maybe know the whole story. She gets disciplined. It's not like she is out of control because she's not disciplined. She gets it, and she is doing much better than she did. And she's a happy child. She doesn't have like meltdowns and extreme behavior. She just moves a lot. She just, you know, she has hard trouble staying still, and sometimes will talk a little bit when she shouldn't, and things like that. So,
right.
In addition, I just also want to say, on the flip side, that there have been on occasion, not maybe quite as often, where, you know, people have come up and said, well, the one lady that's in front of us a lot of times, she turned around one day when my daughter was especially doing well that day, and she turned around at the end of the mass and she said, "You were wonderful today. You were just a little angel." And I mean, it made me realize that she was very much aware of all the days that she's not. But I thought, God bless her for taking the time when she noticed how much better she did that day, and was able to tell her,
well,
you know, you did really well today.
Well, Patricia, let me just share something. Thanks for sharing your story and helping to build awareness. But here's the thing. We have a culture that rushes to judgment. Just turn on the news right now. Everybody's rushing to judgment about all different things that are happening in the government right now. It's just the nature of what's happened in this world, where you're right. When you go into the church, you don't expect to see that, and yet you do, because what's happening is it's bleeding into the church community. And that's why it's so important to have Catholic radio and to educate ourselves in the faith, to really stay strong and and to protect ourselves, to somehow combat this evil that's happening in the world. Because I have to tell you, Patricia, it's your story is similar to my girlfriend's story, who has cancer, and she was totally rejected by her parish community because of all sorts of a situation that happened, but not to go into detail. But it's the same type of situation. People don't know. They're rushing to judgment because it's not affecting them. It's annoying them. And so they make this assessment without knowing all of the facts. It's very unfortunate, and I think by you sharing your story, people that are listening can think about it and say, hey, have I ever done that? And do a little bit of a self-inventory and say, hey, have I done this? Because if I have, I need to change my ways, because that's not how God calls us to be in the world. So you can hear I'm passionate about it, Patricia, because, I mean, I've had my own share of really just what you were kind to call it ignorant statements. I just think it's downright wrong when people open their mouth when they don't know the full facts. So you're kind to say it was ignorant. I have to tell you that. And you sound like a great mom, and your daughter sounds fabulous because she's supported by you, and that's so important in the family.
Well, thank you. It's hard. It's a challenge, but she is the biggest blessing in my life, and I'm just so grateful. Yesterday you were talking about adoption, and a lot of people will judge her birth mom because of what she did. And she had a disease. She had alcoholism. She had addiction. And I am just so grateful that she gave my daughter life, because had she not, I wouldn't have her. And she is what gets me getting up every morning. I mean, I went through a really difficult time over, in the past 5 years or so, and having her made it worth getting up every day, And so she's quite the blessing, and sometimes I have to remind myself of that. But I'm so appreciative of people who are understanding, and I have a lot of support other places, but my purpose in calling was just to raise the awareness of fetal alcohol, and to, like you said, maybe some people that go to church will think about it a little bit and think about, it's much more helpful to offer support to a person who's struggling with a child for whatever reason than to condemn them for the fact that their child is not perfect and does not always do everything a typical child maybe could do.
Right.
One other thing, if I could say real quickly, Jerry, you mentioned yesterday about starting Catholic radio stations in your area. I just want people to know out there, we started a Catholic radio station here, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. All I need is how to turn on a radio and tune it in. And now I am, managing the radio station and running it, and I've learned all about transmitters and barracks boxes and all kinds of things I never knew existed before. So if someone has it, the Holy Spirit inspires them. There is a ton of help out there. Jerry been help to us, as well as the different Catholic radio stations in our area have helped. EWTN is a tremendous help. They're with you every step of the way. So that's just my little plug for Catholic Radio.
Well, you're right, Patricia. Thanks for mentioning that. Thank you for calling in the program. We're going to pray for you, and I believe it's Elizabeth, your daughter, and we're going to pray for all of you there. And as Debbie said, you are a great mom, and that'll just be a good lead into a real quick plug here that among the free program offerings from EWTN, they don't charge stations. They provide programming for free. So it makes it that much easier to start a station and, of course, run a station, because if you have to pay for programming, that if you produce your own programming, that is the bulk of your expenses. That is done away with by EWTN, and they've even got Radio Classics, 24/7 channel of teaching and devotions, straight from the archives. You can hear a lot more from Mother Angelica, Pat Madrid, Father Benedict Rochelle, and others, and you'll find that at EWTNradio.net. Okay, we want to stay with your calls, get to as many of you as we can. Betty in Central New York has us on the Station of the Cross. Hi, Betty. Welcome.
Hi. How are you?
Doing better now that you called.
That's nice of you to say. Boy, I'm listening to all your callers, and so much that I could add. I just have a few comments. I'll try to keep it brief. I have 5 family members with muscular dystrophy, siblings, and Tom's already passed away from his disease. 2 are multiply disabled. My brother Joe lives with me, and he's developmentally delayed. I think he's probably on the autism spectrum, although when he was younger they called it developmental delay, and he has muscular dystrophy. He's at a point where he's probably going to need a wheelchair soon. And, I have some comments to make, and then just touch on a few of what the other callers said. The one caller that said, I switched jobs to become a teacher, and I work in special ed. I'm off this year to try to modify the home more for Joe. But it's so true that any population, you get individuals who, some people are type A people, they want to do it all, never ask for help, and others are the type that, and sometimes any one of us can be this way once in a while. If somebody can do the dishes for me, wouldn't that be great every day? But, so I understand the woman who was talking about her mom, and sometimes, reward charts can be helpful, or, special incentives if somebody's going to do something, especially, or keep doing something when they try to get those type of activities done for them, especially with somebody with needs. I find helpful. Doesn't always work. then the woman that talked about her daughter, the one who just spoke with the fetal alcohol syndrome, first of all, I think it's great that she's homeschooling, because as a special ed teacher, I'm seriously at a point where I don't think I can go back to public school seeing the way it is, between Common Core, which is a nightmare, just total indoctrination, but also the special ed kids often get so little of what they need, and so much judgment, either from an aide. I worked with a principal last year, and when I found out one of my students, I was filling in for maternity leave, when the one student wasn't getting any of his one-on-one resource, and I brought it to her attention, her comment to me was, "Do you want to stay the rest of your time?" When those IEPs are legally binding. So for people, and I bring this up too because my brother, I take him to his occupational therapy at a state hospital that does therapies, and I see a lot of, especially, around 3:30, I see individuals who bring their child, from the schools, those with needs. And one person whose son is very disabled, he's such a great dad, was telling me just how hard it is for him to get the services in the public school that I used to work for, that I live in. He has to bring a lawyer with him. So for parents out there, don't feel bad if you have to do these things. If you have to bring a parent advocate with you to the meetings as another voice to hear what's being said. Because I can tell you firsthand as a special ed teacher, and even with my brother being his advocate at doctors' meetings and so on, there's, now his doctors are good, or I would move on to a different doctor. But there's so much advocating that you have to do, and you just have to stay strong and find other people if you can, support people. Right. Once in a while I'll go to a support group every maybe year and a half that they offer these workshops, but I don't really know as many people, except when I go to the doctor's appointments, that we talk about things, and whether you're sharing information on a good wheelchair or talking about situations and helping them just by listening, it's really key. And when the woman who just spoke talked about people in church, which is so shameful that of all places, anywhere really, but in church, to criticize or be judgmental. I was at Upstate with my brother for his OT, and a woman's daughter, probably 8 years old, was really treating her bad. And I looked over, and of course my initial instinct was, what a bad way to treat your mom. But I said, why are you treating your mom like that? She loves you so much. And the mom just started crying. And I went over and I gave her a hug, and turns out the daughter is being bullied to the point where now she needs behavior therapy. And she said, my daughter's a good kid, and just listening instead of,
right.
It's, yeah.
Well, Betty, I was going to say, it sounds like you almost have a full-time job doing all of this, and I think it is so admirable, Debbie. God has given her many, many opportunities that may be difficult at times, but she's really stepped up.
Well, and the thing about what your story is really incredible, Betty, is that you have opened up your heart and connected with your family members and people you meet, because you see them in my opinion, the way you're talking, you see right to the heart and soul of the person. The body is a shell. I mean, I don't know when we're all going to realize that. We're just the body is a shell. It's just taking us through this life. But that heart and soul, that's what's going to go on for an eternity, the soul for eternity. And Betty, it sounds like you have tapped in to the real essence of what a human being is. And I think that is wonderful. You definitely have, I believe, a ministry, a vocation. And way to go, Betty. I'm so happy you affirmed the other callers on Take Two. That really helps when everybody feels supported. And I love how you said, enlist support. You need a support system. I love that. Okay, Stephanie in Orchard Park, New York, also listening on the Station of the Cross. You're following Betty, one of your fellow Station of the Cross listeners. Hi, Stephanie. Welcome.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Debbie and Jerry. I just have an experience I'd like to share, and usually I can't get through it without crying, but one day recently at morning mass, a couple of pews ahead of me was a mom with her daughter, about in her late teenager, who had Down syndrome, which is an intellectual disability. And all during mass, she was very reverent, saying the prayers, standing up as we all did. And then at communion time, she very reverently walked up, received communion, came back to the pew. At the end of Mass, she exited the pew, but before she left, she turned around, and this one started to cry, and she stood at attention and looked toward the Blessed Sacrament and saluted. And I said to myself, wow, if we could all have that reverence and knowledge of the Blessed Sacrament and what was going on, I thought, wouldn't that be wonderful? And here was a young woman who's supposed to be intellectually disabled, but really was her soul, disabled. And so I just wanted to share that.
Wow, that is beautiful. Reminds me of the parish that I go to I usually go to the Saturday afternoon, the Vigil Mass, and there are two of them. And at one of them, there is a young man. I don't know how young he is. He's probably in his 20s, maybe in his 30s. Has apparently Down syndrome or something, but he always is the one who leads all of the ministers in, and Father, the cross bearer during Mass, and he just beams.
Yes.
Stephanie and Debbie, if you could see him, and I know you've seen pictures in your mind and had experiences like this before, but it just gives him such a sense of I'm participating, and he knows what he's doing, and it's beautiful. And I sometimes think that sometimes people that we think may have perhaps a little bit of a limited intellect really are a lot smarter and more in tune than we think they might be. But anyway, I just wanted to share that. Debbie, did you?
Stephanie, that was just a beautiful story, and that does affirm what we're trying to really raise awareness today with this show, and that those that we, like you said, Jerry, those that we think are not fully, that can't fully grasp what's happening, actually have a better understanding of what's happening. And that's why we can learn from folks. This world is a training ground. And Stephanie, I love that you were taught really just a beautiful, the image and reminder of the sheer reverence we should all have for the Blessed Sacrament. But this precious child did and does. Wow.
Amen.
Keeps us humble. I'll tell you what, it's amazing. And I personally believe persons with disabilities, whether they're invisible or visible, I think you're the closest thing to Jesus. And I think that, yeah. Stephanie, you're a beautiful soul. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you, Stephanie, there in Orchard Park. 1-800-585-9396. We're going over to Des Moines, Iowa now. Deb, listening to EWTN Radio on Iowa Catholic Radio. Hi, Deb. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and the other Deb. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, and I'm a first-time caller.
Welcome.
And I just wanted to say I've been blind since birth. Been attending the same church since I was 7 days old, and I'm your age, Jerry.
Oh, you are.
And I feel that the people with disabilities have been slowly but surely, but we've been being treated better over the years. I remember going to this church and people not even thinking that I knew they were there and wouldn't even speak. And now I'm in the church, and I'm a part of the Bible study. I'm on the prayer chain. It's really a church family, and people volunteer to bring me to activities. People volunteer to bring me to Mass, and I just love everybody and to death. And they they'll say, well, where's your guide dog? How's your guide dog doing? And we just had pictures taken for the church directory, and they said we want Deb's guide dog in the picture with her. And so I can't say enough. And even secular society, when I'm out walking around and I look kind of confused, somebody will say, oh, come up and help me. And I say, oh, I'm just a little discombobulated. And I thank them and just go on. So.
Wow, what a beautiful spirit, beautiful heart, Deb. And you said this has been most of your life that you have been without sight.
Yeah, all my life.
All of your life, all of your life. So, but you can see in other ways, and that's what we understand as Christians, as human beings. Actually,
right.
One doesn't even have to be a Christian, to be able to see with the eye of the soul. And you got 20/20 soul vision. It sounds like to me. And Debbie, I don't know what you think about your.
Well, I just love your joyous spirit, Deb. But you're living up to your name because Debbie's a happy name. And so you're definitely showing that and exhibiting that, and I think it's wonderful. And people are drawn to you. It's very obvious, and especially in your church community. And I love how you're active in ministry and in the Bible study. I think that's wonderful, Deb. And God bless you. You're a beautiful, beautiful soul, and I just love I love how you're grateful that society has come a long way and is being better and more empathetic to those that have disabilities. So that's good. That's really good that you called, Deb. God bless you and have a beautiful rest of your day.
I was happy to hear that too. Yeah, because as we mentioned early in the show, at least at very high levels, there's often a mentality that wants to discard those with any form of disability. So thanks, Deb. Judy, we're going to get to Judy in Orange, Connecticut, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Judy. This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and now with Judy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for calling.
Thank you for your show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you to Mother Angelica for bringing about EWTN, because I've been able to learn a lot recently from all the different shows that you have. So thank you.
Oh, praise God, yeah.
I have a son with high-functioning autism, and he's 16 now, but when he was younger, I tried to bring him to church several times for services, and, sometimes he would be, loud and, disturbing to other people. But then it started to become a problem where he would just cry when he would go to church for the services. And he was about maybe 8 or 9. And every time we would go, he would cry. And I asked him, why was he upset? And he said he just felt guilty. And there was no reason for him to feel that. And it just became such a challenge to bring him because he didn't want to go. And, it's overwhelming and a challenge as it is to, to help your child on the autism spectrum and some of the things that occur. So I just pulled away from the church. And, unfortunately, took a long time away from them. And now my son is 16 and says that, after listening to some information in school that they taught him, that he doesn't believe in God. So I have a lot of guilt for my pulling away from the church. And it's hard when you have a special needs child. And I wish there was some way that there was some sort of services you could have for special needs children to be able to go and, express whatever they express. And, whether they're loud or uncomfortable, they can still be able to come and maybe get some learning on their level.
Right. Judy, we're getting ready to close the show, but would you do us a favor? Would you email us? I think I might have some resources for you, especially for your son. The email is take2, the number 2 at EWTN.com. Please email us after the show. And don't lose hope on that, Judy, because there's no time like the present, especially with God. So you have to realize that. Don't beat yourself up over past situations. You've got now and you've got the future. So let's work on that. There's no accident you called in, Judy. I think we may be of some spiritual assistance in this area. So you're a beautiful mom. Remember that. And you're a great mom. Jerry?
Yeah, thanks, Judy and David and the others. Gosh, I wish we had time. That music means that there's another show coming up. Can you believe it? They have other shows besides Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. We're going to have a talk with them about that. In the meantime, tomorrow we're going to talk about eating on the run, fast food. Do you eat a lot of, like grab and go type food? Do you take time for family meals anymore? Going to have I think an important discussion on that tomorrow, Debbie.
Yep, but we sure will. So until then, have a beautiful and blessed day. We'll see you real soon.